Winter brings the feeling of nesting or hunkering down. It also means the picking up of a piece or two of handicrafts. The oven works overtime for those holiday family favorites, and knitters dash to their local yarn stores to squeeze in one more scarf or a pair of socks for that last-minute gift. As you are crafting away, Barmaids continues to handcraft yummy goodness for your skin. Barmaids handcrafts their products with natural skin-loving oils and butters, everything your skin needs to keep it soft and moisturized, and nothing it doesn't. Since you are likely to use your hands more during the holiday season, let Lolo keep them moisturized. It's simple. Get your hands wet, shake the water off, and get your Lolo on before you pick up the needles, cookie cutter, or drop spindle.
Hi and welcome to Knitting Blooms. This is episode number 87 and thank you for joining me today. I want to start by wishing everybody a Happy New Year. It's not actually New Year yet, but it will be in a couple of days, and I hope everybody has a safe New Year's Eve and a happy first part of the year. So I will get started with today's goodness. I want to start today by thanking a couple people for sending me their patterns. I don't have copies of them here with me today, only because I don't print them out, and I downloaded them to my computer, but I haven't downloaded them to my iPad yet. So I want to thank US 50 Steve and Photo Kitty Kelly for sending me, both of them sent me one of their patterns. And Steve sent me an entire book of patterns that are done on very large needles. And I haven't really looked at either one of the patterns. Like I said, I downloaded them to my computer when I got the email, but that was about as far as it went. It's been a crazy busy week this week, and I just really haven't spent a whole lot of time on the computer, as little as possible. And I also want to thank iVampy. A while ago, he sent me, that's Peter, and they have the Knitting 365 podcast, him and his wife. He sent me some stitch markers, and they got buried on my desk. And I came across them. My desk in my computer room in the house has been a mess for a while. And these little small things kind of got lost. And I want to thank him for sending me these. I actually got them after October, which was the breast cancer awareness, but they are for breast cancer awareness month. But they're so cute, and I just wanted to mention them and thank him for sending those to me. So, and then also in addition, Rachel from the Knit Me Happy podcast sent some stitch markers. I actually placed an order from her, and she sent some stitch markers for a prize for something on the podcast as well. So thank you, Rachel, for sending that along. Also, my stash enhancement this week, which really wasn't this week, it was a few weeks ago, but again, these things, you know, they kind of got buried on the desk. Sometimes I will open packages at my desk and then just put them there, and then they get buried with other packages, and that's kind of what has happened the last couple of weeks. I haven't gone through some of the newer donations to the podcast, and they've all been sitting on my desk unopened, and my packages that I did open got buried underneath those packages. So I think it was right after Knittin' in the Mitten. I had tried, at Knittin' in the Mitten, I had tried the Carbons needles. Amy from the Knitting in Circles podcast had them, and I tried them, and I wasn't really thrilled with them, but I thought, like, if there's some yarn that was a little bit more slippery, I might want to have them. So I ordered a set for myself. I ordered the size zeros because that's what I usually knit socks in, and I ordered a set just to give them a shot. Like I said, I haven't used them. They got buried on my desk for a few weeks, and when I was straightening up my desk the other day, I came across them. So now I have a pair of those. I like to get the zeros because I use them a lot when I have multiple pairs of socks on the needles. So it works out for me. Okay, last week, as you know, I started doing the podcast a little bit differently, and I recorded things in segments. Well, one of the segments was forgotten. Just because I remembered it, and I thought that I included all the segments when I created my project in iMovie, but apparently I didn't, and I was watching back the video, and I had remembered that there was a segment that was missing. So I went back through my events and stuff, and sure enough, there it was, but I forgot to include it in the podcast. So I will include that segment here for you now. It was in regards to the Halos of Hope. So here is the segment from last week's episode that was forgotten. I want to quickly mention a charity today. Sandy, who is Angel Mom 3, contacted me on Ravelry and asked me to mention the new Halos of Hope charity drive. And they do a children's cancer camp called Camp Happy Times, and they are doing a drive for hats for 2013. She sent me a PM and asked if I could get the word out in regards to this campaign. They have a camp for, like I said, children's cancer camp, and they do hats for this camp, and the theme for 2013 is stars. So she says anything that's glittery, moons, stars, astrology, etc. And they are planning on doing some stargazing with the kids this year, and it does get cold at night, so they are wanting to make sure that all the kids have hats. And she does also mention that they like the Universal Yarns Cotton Supreme sequence. So if you are so inclined to knit some hats for Halos of Hope and would like to incorporate the stars theme, I'm sure they would greatly appreciate your contribution. So thanks so much. So that was the episode. That was the segment that I missed last week. Sorry about that. I did hear from a number of people that let me know that they enjoyed the podcast last week, and they enjoyed the different segments. To me, I found it to be quite choppy, only because I did part of the episode, and then I did little segments, and then I did the main part of the episode, and then I was stopping and going at that point. I am going to try and continue to do those type of segments like that if it calls for it. Obviously, I will have my tutorial segment that will be recorded ahead of time, and if there are other segments that I want to record, I can also do that as well. If there's like that Halos of Hope segment, and then if I feel like I want to run that for another podcast, I can just pop it in there and let you see that again. So I'm glad that everybody has enjoyed that new format. I might be tweaking it a little bit over the next few weeks or so, but I kind of liked it myself, and I did like the shorter format a lot. A couple people mentioned the shorter format. Some people said if it's more than 45 minutes, it's fine. I'm just going to go with it and see how it goes. I'm going to try and keep it between 30 and 45 minutes. Again, I'm not going to show you all of my projects, even if I made a little bit of progress on them. I'm going to try and continue to show you any finished objects that I finished that week, and then maybe one or two of my works in progress. And to be completely honest with you, I'm in one of those phases of my knitting where I want to get it all off the needles. It's like things have been on the needles for too long, or I have too many things on the needles. So over the next few weeks, my goal is to try and get things off the needles as quickly as possible. So, and again this week I have 2 finished objects to show you, and I'm also going to show you one whip. So let's get into that. I actually have coffee this morning because it is morning. The last few weeks I have been recording in the afternoon, and so I haven't had coffee. But this week I have coffee. Okay, so let's talk about my first finished object, which is the halyard shawl. And I just have to be careful not to dip it in the coffee. So here's the halyard shawl that I did for Knittopia. And it was done with Knit Picks Bear, the alpaca base that's no longer available as a bear, and also Noro King. So, and it turned out beautifully. I love how it turned out. In the one that I made, the color segments were a lot shorter, so there was a lot more color around it. This one has longer color segments, so it looks like it's kind of like blocks, but I still love it. It's a nice greens, and I think just about anybody would like this shawl. I do need to block it and weave in my ends, but it is off the needles and complete. The last time I showed it to you, there's my stitch marker from the last time I showed it to you. So I did quite a bit this week, though. I think it was about right there when I started it this week. But that was one of the things I kind of looked over my project to see, okay, this one's fairly close to being finished. Let's try and get this one done. So there is the halyard shawl, and again, this will be up for auction at Knittopia in 2013. I'm very excited about that. So that is the first finished object of the day. The next finished object, I didn't think that I was going to have finished today. I actually started working on them on Wednesday, and I was thinking that I might get most of it done, but I was still thinking that it wouldn't quite be finished. But I have finished mitts. There they are. They're done. This is where I was on Wednesday. And actually, what I did was, on Wednesday I figured out how many rows I had to get to the top, because my goal was to get to the top of the second mitt and do the bind off, with the braided bind off. And that was my goal. And then if I didn't have my thumbs done, then I was going to be okay with that. So I had 90 rows. I was just right at the border. Actually, I was a little bit further. I think I had done 2 or 3 rows, but this was the last time I showed it to you. So I had about 90 rows to go before I got to the border. So I figured, okay, on Wednesday, if I did 30 rows a day, I would be done with the top of the mitten. So that's exactly what I did. As long as I did 30 rows, I was okay, and I said, okay, I can stop if I want. And then on Friday, I bound off the top, and I had the thumb, and I did one thumb on Friday, and I was going to do the other, and I did the other thumb Saturday morning, and they're done. And you'll notice that the thumbs are slightly different. I did the blue thumb first, and as I was working on the blue thumb, I was thinking, oh, that looks a little bit too blue, and I don't know if I like that, so I did the white and pink on the next one, and to be honest with you, I like the blue one better. But I was too lazy to take out the other thumb and redo it, so I just left it. So I finished my mittens before the end of the knit along, before the official end of the knit along. Now you guys have now until January 19th, because that is when I'm going to record next. Or not record next, but that's the next recording after the 15th of January. Because I said last week that we were going to go to the 15th of January, but then the next recording after the 15th of January is the 19th. So you guys will have until the 19th in the morning, so you'll have all night the 18th, but if you don't get it posted in the morning, I don't know when I'm going to record that day, so you'll have to get it done and posted early if you're going to plan on posting it on the 19th. So I have a finished mittens, and I'm so happy that I finished them during the actual knit along, and they didn't overflow. And I have to tell you that last year when I did my Stinky Pink mittens, I felt a little bit uncomfortable with the color work on size zeros. This time I felt a little bit more comfortable. By the time I got to my second mitten, I was feeling a lot more comfortable, and I think that I'm going to start another pair of mittens right away. In fact, I might try and make mittens for everybody for Christmas next year. Well, maybe not everybody, but a few people for Christmas next year. And it would be nice to get them started now so I can work on them and then take a break if I need to, or not work on them for a while. I got these done in less than 2 months because I don't remember the exact date that I started them, but it was less than 2 months because I didn't start them right at the beginning of November. I think I started them at Knit in the Mitten or there soon after. So they're done, and I love them. They are so warm. I'm glad that I went with the mitts, and I'm glad I made the arms a little bit longer too. I do like that as well, because even though with the mittens, I complained because this edge stitch didn't fall along the outside of my hand, and the same thing over here, it falls more in because I guess my thumb is more inside than outside, and so it twists, and it drove me crazy that the top of the mitten was twisting. So I'm glad that I did the mitts because I think I'll wear them more often because they don't twist as much. Now, I do have a pair of mittens that Valerie made, who is the designer of these patterns, that she made in Wollmeise, and I haven't actually worn those yet, but I'm going to try wearing those, and maybe part of my problem is that I have a tighter knit than what she has, because my mittens fit very snug on my hand, where hers that she made are much looser. So it's possible that the reason that mine twist a little bit is because they're tighter on my hand than they're really supposed to be. But to be honest, I really like them like this. And if I'm going to wear them, you know, outside and in the cold and stuff, you'll notice, I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but this is the second mitten I did. It's not as puckery as the first one. I don't know if you'll be able to see that on the camera or not, but this one I got so much better with carrying my floats and keeping them loose and all of that. And I just think that some techniques just get better as you continue to do them. So if you're trying a new technique and you're not quite getting it, or you're not liking the outcome of it, don't give up on it, because maybe you just need a little bit more practice. I mean, knitting takes practice and different techniques take practice, so just keep practicing and eventually you'll find that what works for you and you'll become a master at it. So those are my finished objects, and I am going to show you one work in progress, and it is my knit swirl. And I have wound the yarn, the second 2 balls of yarn, because I'm almost out. I haven't started using these yet, but I was almost to the point where I needed to start using the new ones when I was working on it earlier this week. The last time I showed you this, I worked on, the last time I showed you this, I had started working up the back. And I have continued to work up the back. And I'm continuing to use, just cut my yarn and attach it. And I will show you why when I do the tutorial, when I put the tutorial in, because I did a technique for the Russian join. But here is my progress. I got a few welts completed. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 new welts completed on the back, and I still need to weave in all my ends. I've been cutting the yarn, but I have not been weaving them in. I need to just take one day and weave in all the ends, which is what I did with my sock yarn blanket. I think it was last week. I just took one day and I just sat down and started weaving in all the ends. And what I do is I don't weave in the ends on the squares until they have another layer on top. I've just found that it's easier. I have more ways to weave in the ends when I have a whole layer on top. So that's what I did, is I wove in the ends for the second layer down. But this is coming right along. When I started doing the increases on this, I was just doing a lifted increase, but I found that the lifted increase was not that, didn't have that much give to it, and I knew that this edge has to be seamed along the inside of the sweater. So I guess it was, I can't tell exactly where, but I'm guessing about here that I started doing a knit in the front and the back increase instead of the lifted increase, because I can't tell exactly. I'm thinking it was about there, because the lifted increase was just not having enough give to it, and the knit in the front and the back gave it extra yarn, whereas the lifted increase pulled the row before it tighter, and it was causing a bit of a problem, and I was concerned that I wasn't going to be able to seam it all the way up. So this is coming right along. This is probably going to be my main focus this week, just because it's easy to knit, and I'm trying to get through a couple of books that I've been reading for forever, and I can read and knit while working on this project. So there's that. And speaking of the Russian join, I did start, I know that a while ago I mentioned that I was doing the Russian join on this project, but I did switch back to weaving in my end, to the just cutting and weave, and have to weave them in, only because the Russian join with this particular yarn was not that secure as far as I was concerned. It was fine, but I just kept having little bits. Let me see if I can find where I was doing a lot of the weaving in the ends, or where I was doing the Russian join. I've taken out all my stitch markers, so I don't really remember exactly where it was. It must have been over on this end. But I was having a lot of bits that were just, the ends were poking out. See, like here, I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but the ends are poking out, and I was just getting frustrated with that. So that's why I decided to go ahead and go back to snipping the yarn and weaving them in. So here I'm going to show you the tutorial for the Russian join, which is a fabulous technique, but for this particular yarn it was not the best. I do show you in the tutorial 2 different yarns, and I make a few mistakes. So you'll see that even somebody who's been doing it for a while can make mistakes with it. So, so here's the tutorial for you. What I have found with this technique is that it works best with a multiplied yarn, and the tighter the twist the better, and the more plies the better. And it's pretty simple technique to do. You're going to start with one end, and you're going to thread your needle, and you're going to put your end close to the needle. And then what you're going to do is you're going to thread the needle through the plies. And this is where the multiple plies and the tight plies come in handy. And you're just going to thread your needle through the center of those plies for a good inch or 2. It just depends on, you know, how far you want to go. I usually try and go a good distance. And then once you thread it down, you just pull it through, and then you pull it so that you just have a small loop here at the end. And then I just straighten it back out again to pull all those plies together so it's tightly twisted. And if you have a tiny bit left over, you can just trim that off. And then that end pops right in to the rest of the plies. And then the second part is you do the same thing on the next piece of yarn. However, you are going to want to thread it through that hole first, just like so. So you're going to thread your yarn through the hole before you start securing it. And I pull about as much as I want to go into the plies out past the hole, and then I start threading my needle through the plies right after the hole. And again, you just put the needle through all of those plies. Until you get a good distance. You try not to split the plies at all. Till you get a good distance away from the join, and then you pull your needle through. And again, you want to pull it so that it pulls just so you have a tiny hole at this end, not a big hole. And then you straighten out your yarn. And then you can trim off your end. And there you have it, the Russian join. It is quite strong. You will notice that where the yarn is woven through, it is thicker than the rest of the yarn. But typically that doesn't really show up once you're knitting it. But if you have concerns for that, you can separate your plies. So let's say this is a 3-ply here, so you might separate one of the plies out and just weave in 2 plies. But I will show you in a moment why sometimes that is not always a good idea, because especially with a loosely plied yarn. So hang on just a moment and I'll show you the next one. So you will see here that this yarn is more of a loosely plied yarn. The twist is not that tight on this yarn, and it is a 4-ply. So if I wanted to, I could separate the plies out as far down as I want to go and trim off one of those plies before I weave in. Actually, I'm cutting off 2 of the plies before I weave in for this join. So again, I'm going to thread my needle, and then I'm going to start weaving through these plies. Now, the other yarn was a 3-ply, and it was easier to weave through. This one, because the plies are not very tightly twisted, it's a little bit more difficult to try and get down in the center without it slipping out, because the plies just seem to fall apart. It can be done, but it's not as simple as that first one. So once I've got it down there, I can just pull it through. Pull it just so that that ply is right there. We still want to keep that hole, and then straighten out the yarn. See, and this one is not as tight as strong. You see how it just came right out of there when I tugged on it, which is another reason why when you're working with a yarn that is not as tightly plied, it's probably a better idea to go ahead and use all 4 plies, even though it will make it thicker. I know that this will work with this yarn because I have done it before on this yarn. It's just not as secure when before it's knitted up. So let's try again. I won't pull as tautly on it. So just pull it down until you get to that ply. And you see, this is another reason why it's not a good idea to do plied, to separate the plies when you have a loosely plied yarn, because the plies just end up sticking out, and you got to trim them off. And then if you trim them off too much, your join is completely gone. So we'll go with the other side, and I'll split the plies on this just so you can see how that works. And just start weaving it through. And again, you see how, I don't know how well you'll be able to see those different plies, but they're almost not even twisted in that one area right there. So it's a little bit difficult to kind of get them between the plies when the plies are have very little twist to them. So again, this technique is not the best technique for lightly twisted yarns. It can be done, but it's not the best. And you can see how those twists are just kind of falling apart there. And then pull it through. So I don't want to pull it too far. And then we'll trim off the excess on this end. Oh, forgot to put it through the hole. See, I've done that a number of times when I've done both sides and I forgot to put it through a hole. So if you do that, no worries, because I've done that plenty times. So I'll just trim it off and do it again. It happens when you're not thinking. You're thinking, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing, and then you forget to weave it through the hole first. I did that quite a number of times when I was working on my project. So let's weave it through the hole before. And now let's go through. And I wanted to show you this particular yarn because of the fact that it is a very loosely plied yarn, and it is more difficult to make this technique work, but it does work. It's just not, doesn't look as nice as the other yarn that I had used before. There we go. So it is a strong join. It can be done. If I pulled more tightly on this yarn, it might come loose. But once you get it knit up into your fabric, it will be fine. And it is still a tiny bit thicker than the rest of the yarn, but not nearly as much as the first one, which seemed to be quite a bit thicker. So you can see exactly where the joins are, right there, where they go to. But that is the Russian join, and I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so I hope that tutorial will help you out. It is a fabulous way to join your yarn when it's a yarn that can't be spit spliced, because typically I like to spit splice my yarn. But when you have things, when your yarn is not 100% animal fiber and you have silk or you're using acrylic or what have you, this is really the perfect thing to use. In fact, even with my mittens, there was one part on my mittens where I broke the yarn at the wrong part, and I think this yarn is superwash. I didn't try to spit splice it. It is merino, but I think it's superwash, so I didn't even try to spit splice it. But I did do the Russian join on this, and it worked out fine. I think it's a little bulkier at one little segment. It's right down here. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but you see those two thicker white stitches right there? That's where the end, where it was a little bit thicker, because I didn't split the plies on that one, and I just went ahead and did all of the plies, which I don't remember how many they were, but it did make it a little bit thicker right there for that one couple of stitches. I didn't do it on the whole thing, just on that one segment, because I had broken the white yarn when I shouldn't have broken the white yarn yet, because I was on the wrong side. So I just joined it back together and then knit that final half of the row. So probably the Russian join is probably not the best thing if you're going to have bulk to your yarn to do on something like socks or a very tight knit, small tight knit gauge fabric. But it is good for a lot of other things. I think I used it on Steve's hat. For some reason, I think I ran out of one of the colors or something. I can't remember. But for like acrylic and stuff like that, it's a fabulous way to go for that. So I did want to mention that the shawl that I'm wearing today is my modified Lady Eleanor. It is just basically a rectangular shawl. I liked the Lady Eleanor pattern. I didn't have the pattern book at the time that I started to make this. So what I had done was I had looked up other interlock patterns, and I looked at a washcloth pattern and a scarf pattern and kind of figured out how I was going to make this shawl, because I just wanted a rectangle. I didn't want any fringe or anything. I think the Lady Eleanor actually has fringe on it. And I just figured out how to do interlock or entrelock, and figured out how many stitches I wanted to have across the bottom and so forth, and just started knitting it. And I think I finished this last year. This was one of those projects, I think it was at the beginning of the year for Finish It or Frog It, that I finally finished it. And I've worn it a couple times, and it's really warm. It's a heavy fingering weight, probably close to a DK weight yarn, and I love it. It's very warm right now, and the basement has been colder than it was before. When we had the boiler, we had different segments in the house, and we could set the temperature for each segment. So if the temperature dropped in the basement more, then it would kick on the heat and it would heat up. But now the thermostat is on the second floor, and in the basement it gets a little chilly sometimes. So this is perfect for wearing around the basement. And I am wearing a new shawl pin that Steve got me for Christmas. And I had a different shawl pin on my wish list from Amazon, which is actually, for Amazon you can put anything on your wish list now, and it was actually a shawl pin from an Etsy shop. And he got to thinking, oh, I could make these. So I might have a whole slew of new shawl pins to show you guys, and he might decide if he's going to sell them on Etsy or not. I don't know if he will or not. He seems to like to do things for me, but doesn't really want to spend the time to make extra money, because it's not, he does it for fun, and when you start to do something for the money, it becomes not so fun. So I'll be happy if he just makes me a whole bunch of shawl pins. But I'll keep you informed and let you know if he decides that he's going to sell them. And also, another one of my Christmas presents that I got was, you see what this is? This would be a woolly winder bobbin for the e-spinner. My husband gave me this along with a gift certificate to get a new Hanson e-spinner or mini spinner. And I will probably be getting it by the end of January or February, I'm thinking. I need to save up a little bit more money for it, but I will be having my own little Hanson mini spinner soon. So that's very exciting. I have been spinning on my e-spinner that he built me at work, but like I've mentioned many times before, it is kind of noisy and you can't really do it in a group. But it's been very motivational to save up my money and get the Hanson e-spinner. I have also been working on the alpaca. I'm trying to get the second third completed. I was hoping to get it completed before the end of December because we're doing the spinawary for January, and I want to be able to spin the last third of it for January and then get it all applied. I don't know if I'm going to finish this third. I still have probably about 1.5 yards of the roving to go, which is kind of a lot because it's pretty thick roving. So we'll see how it goes. If not, then I'll just continue spinning it and then spin the last third in January, which is about, it's more than 4 ounces. I think it's like 5 ounces is the third, because it's about 5 ounces, maybe a little bit more, because it was a whole pound to start with, so a total of 16 ounces. So it's a little bit more than 5 ounces for the third. So I'm hoping to be able to get that spun up in January for the spin along that we're going to do. And then in February, we have the F cubed cowl, which is the Finish It or Frog It February. So get those projects ready, get them lined up to be finished for February. Anything that was started prior to September 1st, 2012 is eligible for the Finish It or Frog It February. You can either finish it or you can frog it in February, and it will count towards a prize. And I'll give more details when we get closer to that. But also, like I said, the spin along for January, for Spinawary, get your fiber together. You have to spin at least 4 ounces of fiber in January, or you have to have started it. You could have started it any time, but you have to finish it and ply it in January. And then it will count towards a prize. And I haven't gone through my prize stash yet, but I'm pretty sure that I have at least 1 braid of fiber in there that I will put up for a prize in January. And I think that's about all I have for you today. I don't have any new donations for Knitopia this week. I do have some on my desk. I think that I have mentioned everything that was on my desk already, even though I haven't opened the packages and logged them in. I'm pretty sure that I mentioned them last time. Yes, I think so. 2 weeks ago, I mentioned three new vendors, and I'm pretty sure that those are the packages that are on my desk, and I haven't received any new packages yet. I've kind of been in a lull because, you know, the holidays, people aren't shipping things. Companies are trying to not, you know, add more traffic into the package system, you know, with all the Christmas gifts and whatnot. So, but anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial on the Russian join. It is such a helpful little technique to know. So that's all I've got. So I will talk to you next week. Bye for now.